third graders. We're continuing our read of Puppy Place, and we're starting on chapter 6, page 61. Chapter 6, page 61. So let's read. Charles looked up at Dad, and Dad grinned and shrugged. "Yes, you," said Chloe. "Come on in here and I'll hand him off. You can zip him up inside your jacket to keep him warm. Charles walked up to the gate, but he couldn't quite make himself open it and go inside. Some of the sheep in the pen were really big, with huge curled horns. "They're all gentle," said Chloe, as if she had read his mind. "No worries. I promise they won't hurt you." Dad helped Charles unlatch the gate, and he walked inside, stepping nervously around the sheep that milled about. Now he could see that there were lambs in the pen too. They had been sticking close to their mothers, but when they saw him, they ran and jumped and dodged here and there as if they were calling out, "Chase me, chase me." Charles was dying to hold one of them, but they didn't look like they'd be at all easy to catch. In the middle of the flock stood Chloe, holding the littlest lamb of all. Charles walked closer. The lamb's tiny ears twitched and his mouth worked. He made a soft bleating noise that went straight to Charlie's heart. "Ready?" said Chloe when Charles was right in front of her. Charles held out his arms and she nestled the soft, warm lamb into them. "There you go," she said. Charles gulped and held the lamb tight. Was Chloe actually handing him this helpless, hungry, frightened baby animal? Charles didn't know anything about taking care of lambs. What was he supposed to do? He tightened his grip, took a few quick, shallow breaths, and looked over at his dad. Dad grinned at him and gave him a thumbs up. Charles hugged the lamb close and felt tears come to his eyes. "Don't worry, little guy," he whispered to the lamb. "We'll take good care of you." When Charles climbed into Steve's truck, with the lamb zipped inside his jacket, Freckles sat up straight. His ears perked up, the brown one a little higher than the freckled one, and his nose wiggled as he sniffed the air. "What's this? What's this I smell?" Then the pup leaned over and began to sniff Charles. The lamb, nestled deep inside his jacket, began to bleat. Charles could feel him trembling, just the way Freckles had trembled when they had first found him. "Dad," Charles said, "can you take Freckles up front? I think he's scaring Fluffy." "Fluffy?" Dad turned around in his seat, raising his eyebrows. "You're quick with the names, aren't you?" He smiled as he reached back to pick up Freckles. "Come on, dude, right up here with me," he said as he held the curious puppy firmly. Freckles looked back at the lamb and whined softly. "I just want to be friends. What's the big deal?" "Well, this lamb actually is very fluffy," said Charles. He couldn't get over how soft the lamb's coat had felt in his hands. It was like petting a cloud. "I'm sure he is," said Steve. "All lambs are. I think it's the perfect name for a baby lamb, especially this baby lamb." Fluffy never really stopped bleating all the way back to Steve's, and he bleated the whole time as they hiked through the woods to the cabin. The sound hurt Charlie's ears. It made Charles' heart hurt too, to hear the sad, lonely way the lamb was crying. Fluffy's mood seemed to match the low, gray skies overhead. "Poor guy. He must miss his mom," he said to Dad, "and his brother and sister." "I think he's mainly hungry," said Steve as they came into the cabin. "I'm sure you can make him feel at home while I get a bottle ready. Sit down on the couch with him and get comfortable." Steve was rummaging through the bag Chloe had packed. He pulled out a bag of disposable diapers. "Better put one of these on him," he said, handing it to Dad. He laughed when he saw the look on Charles' face. "It's what we do when we take care of baby lambs inside a house," Steve said. "Baby lambs, well," he lowered his voice to a whisper, "they go to the bathroom an awful lot." He returned to rummaging in the bag. Chloe probably packed some special lamb milk replacement formula in a bottle. It's easy to mix this stuff up, and the lambs love it. He pulled out the bottle. Ta-da! Then he reached back in for a plastic zipper bag full of yellowish powder. And here's the formula. Great! Charles could feel the lamb's heart beating super fast inside his chest. He was still bleeding, but the sound was growing weaker. The lamb's ears hung down limply, and he did not try to struggle out of Charles' arms. He just lay there, still trembling. I think he wore himself out with all that crying, Charles said. He gazed down at the soft, tiny animal and felt hot tears come to his eyes. The poor thing. He'll be fine once we get him fed, said Steve, who had been bustling around in the kitchen. He came over to the couch with the bottle he'd prepared. I hope he's already learned how to drink from the bottle. Let's see how he does. The lamb stopped bleeding as soon as he saw the bottle. Right away, he stretched out his neck and began sucking hard. His little tail wagged as he tugged at the nipple. Charles had to hold tight to keep the lamb from pulling the bottle right out of his hands. Wow, said Charles. You were right. He sure is hungry. That reminded him. I bet Freckles is hungry too, he said. Did he have breakfast? Hey, where is Freckles? Charles had been so focused on the lamb that for a few moments he'd almost forgotten all about the adorable little mutt. He's just outside the door, Dad said. I left him in the mudroom until we could get the lamb settled in. He seems awfully interested in Fluffy. I think you can bring him in now, said Steve. Just hang on to him and let him sniff around a bit. Freckles needs to get used to the idea that we have another guest staying with us, and Fluffy needs to get used to the idea of dogs. Let's just do our best to keep them apart, though. Charles wasn't sure how easy that was going to be in the tiny cabin, but he knew Steve was right. It was better to give both of these young animals lots of quiet time. They had been through so much already. Dad went outside and came right back in with Freckles on a leash. The spotted pup was on alert. He obviously knew there was another creature in the cabin. His ears were perked up, and he wagged his tail as he sniffed all around. Where is he? What is he? Is he friendly? I could really use a pal. Freckles dragged Dad straight to the couch where Charles and Steve were sitting with the lamb. Charles hugged the lamb closer in case he was afraid, but Fluffy was concentrating so hard on eating that he didn't even seem to notice the nosy puppy. He wasn't trembling anymore, Charles noticed. He had relaxed into Charles's arms as he sucked on the bottle. Freckles, Dad said, pulling on the leash. Leave the lamb alone. He needs to settle in without your help. He took Freckles over to the kitchen and poured some kibble into his bowl. I don't know, Steve. Looks like we really have our hands full here, and there's still the sugaring to do. Steve cleared his throat. Yep. And there's one other thing, he said, gesturing to the window. I forgot to mention the news I heard at the post office about a big, fast-moving snowstorm coming our way. The weather people are predicting a foot or more during the day today and overnight. What? Dad asked. Steve nodded at the window. Looks to me like it's already started. Charles looked out the window. Wow, he said. Steve was right. Giant flakes were spinning through the air, carried by gusting winds that tossed the branches on the trees. He felt like the cabin was inside a snow globe that some giant had just shaken. Steve didn't seem to think it was a big deal, but Charles knew that back home, a snowstorm like this would close the schools and roads. That's March in Vermont for you, Steve said. You never know what's around the corner. The weather can change in minutes. On the plus side, he added, if it's cold enough to snow, the sap probably won't be rain today, so we don't have to go around in empty buckets. We can finish boiling off what we already have in the tank and then just batten down the hatches and get cozy for the night. You mean? Dad began. Steve nodded. I think it's best if you two stay here with me tonight. Between the snow and the critters, I think I could probably use some help. Charles smiled and hugged the sleeping lamb on his lap. This was turning out to be the best spring vacation ever. We're going to stop there, and tomorrow we'll start on page 72, chapter 7. We're already at chapter 7. Thank you so much, champions. Have a really good day and take care. Bye-bye.